Hello and welcome back to Bicyclelegs and another edition of Anniversary Albums. Today we're going to be looking at albums that are having a significant anniversary in the month of June 2023. For those of you not familiar with this series, when I say a significant anniversary, I'm talking about one that ends in a 5 or a 0. So 25th, 40th, 50th, 35th, that sort of thing. You'll get the hang of it as we go along. As usual, I've picked 10 albums, and again, it was a very difficult month to pick just 10 albums from, but I've done my best to go with the ones I think are the most significant, or the ones that are most significant to me anyway. So let's start with our first album. It's having its 40th anniversary in the month of June. It was originally released on the 1st of June 1983, and that is Speaking in Tongues by Talking Heads. Now, I've done a studio albums ranked on Talking Heads, so I will leave a link to that in the description. This is not a top tier Talking Heads album for me, but there is no such thing as a bad Talking Heads album for me. There's some great songs on this album, really great songs. I just tend to think that the versions that are in the movie Stop Making Sense, the live versions, are better versions than the ones that are on the album. But you've still got some absolutely wonderful songs on here. Burning Down the House. I mean, an all-time classic Talking Heads song right there. Making Flippy Floppy. Girlfriend is Better. The live version of that was actually a bit of a hit here in Australia. You have Slippery People. You've got Swamp. Great song. Pull Up the Roots. This Must Be the Place. Naive Melody. Beautiful song. Probably the one that's closest, the live version, to the studio version. It's still a really, really good album. As I say, some absolutely great songs on here. The next album we're going to have a look at is having its 45th anniversary in the month of June. It was originally released on the 2nd of June 1978, and that is Darkness on the Edge of Town by Bruce Springsteen. Obviously also featuring the E Street Band, but they don't get a credit on the front cover for this one. This is, it's got to be a top 5, even a top 3 Bruce Springsteen album for me. This is just a wonderful, wonderful album. I probably like this even better than the previous album, which was Born to Run, obviously. But I just think this is a wonderful album. I mean, it starts off with Badlands. What a great opening track that is. Adam Raised a Cain, one of my favourite Bruce Springsteen songs. Something in the Night, Candy's Room. You know, there's so many good songs on this album. The Promised Land, another absolutely great song. Prove It All Night, title track. This is an absolutely brilliant Bruce Springsteen album. One of the all-time best sort of heartland rock albums I think that's ever been made. The next album we're going to have a look at is also having its 45th anniversary in the month of June. It was originally released the very next day, on the 3rd of June 1978. And that is the second album by Peter Gabriel, which is obviously, as his first 4 albums are, just simply called Peter Gabriel. Although because of the album cover, this is often known as Scratch, or sometimes just called Peter Gabriel 2. This was a quite different album for Peter Gabriel. He was coming out of Genesis. His first album had still little bits of that Genesis sound to it. This is a complete left turn for him. It's produced by Robert Fripp from King Crimson. You'd think that would make a very proggy album, but it doesn't, because that's not where Fripp's head was at in the late 70s. He was sort of playing with, you know, the Stranglers and Blondie and bands like this. You know, he was getting really involved in the punk and the post-punk scene, and he brings that into his production with Peter Gabriel, and I think Peter Gabriel really wanted to sort of explore that direction as well. You get songs like On the Air and DIY. I mean, DIY is almost a sort of a punk song in the lyric, you know, sort of do it yourself. That's kind of the artistic way of things with punk, isn't it? Mother of Violence, A Wonderful Day in a One-Way World, White Shadow, wonderful way to end side 1, love that song. You've got Indigo, you've got Exposure, the title track, which Robert Fripp co-wrote. does lots of his lovely sort of frippatronic kind of guitar on it. That would also be the title track for Robert Fripp's first solo album. Flotsam and Jetsam, Perspective, Home Sweet Home. This is unlike any other Peter Gabriel album, and I think it's well worth knowing in the catalogue just for its oddness and its difference. I've done a Peter Gabriel ranking too, so I'll leave a link for that in the description. I've also done a ranking, and we'll leave a link in the description, for this next band. Their very debut album came out in the month of June, also celebrating its 45th anniversary. Was originally released on the 6th of June 1978, and that is the self-titled Cars debut. And I mean, what an incredible album. Anybody who's seen my studio albums ranked for the Cars, a bit of a spoiler here, this was number one. And I don't know how anything else could be number one in the Cars catalogue. Not to say that, I mean, I love all the Cars albums, but this one is just incredible. It's their first album, and it's virtually a greatest hits album. I mean, pretty much every song on this album still gets played on the radio. Good Times Roll, My Best Friend's Girl, just what I needed. I mean, I remember I had a good friend, Tony Wall. Hi, Tony, if you're watching. When I was a teenager, he was playing in a band called the Zeros, and they were sort of a mixture of covers and originals. And they used to play Just What I Needed, and I used to love it every time. I'm in Touch with Your World, Don't Just Stop. And then you get on side two and you've got You're All That I've Got Tonight, Bye Bye Love, Moving in Stereo, and All Mixed Up. I mean, as I said, pretty much every song on this is, you know, on the Cars' greatest hits album. It's just an incredible debut. One of the all-time great debuts, I think. Now, the next album we're going to have a look at is having its 30th anniversary in the month of June. It was originally released on the 7th of June 1993, and that is Elemental by Tears for Fears. Now, fans of the channel will know that I just did a Tears for Fears studio albums ranked with John the MusicNut. It was a wonderful show. Our rankings tended to agree quite a lot, except for this album and Raoul and the Kings of Spain, which was the album that came after it. We kind of flip-flopped those two albums. I love this album. This is the first album that Roland basically did as Tears for Fears on his own. Kurt Smith had left the band by this stage. It's a stripped-down album compared with the previous album, which was The Seeds of Love, which is my favourite Tears for Fears album. But this is an incredible follow-up, considering all the turmoil that Roland had gone through, you know, with losing Kurt and all that sort of thing. The title track, Elemental, just great way to kick off an album. Cold is a great song. Break It Down Again, probably the last big hit that Tears for Fears had. Certainly got a lot of radio play here in Australia if it didn't quite crack the upper echelons of the charts. Mr. Pessimist, Dog's a Best Friend's Dog, Fish Out of Water, sort of his How Do You Sleep, if you know How Do You Sleep, was John Lennon's sort of barbed song at Paul McCartney. Fish Out of Water is Roland's barbed song at Kurt Smith. Gas Giants is beautiful, Power, Brian Wilson Said, and Goodnight Song. It's just a brilliant album start to finish. I really, really love this album. And if you don't know this album from Tears for Fears, definitely recommend checking it out. Now, the next album is also celebrating its 45th anniversary in the month of June. It's another debut album. It's another self-titled album. It was originally released on the 9th of June, 1978, and it's the self-titled debut from Dire Straits. I've also done a Dire Straits studio albums rank, so I'll leave a link for that in the description. This is a really good debut. I think they would do better albums as they went along, particularly making movies and, oh, I can't think of the name of the album that came after it. Love Over Gold, that's the one. But this is a great debut. I mean, down to the waterline. Real sort of statement of intent for the early incarnation of this band. Water of Love. I knew that song from a compilation album that I had when I was a kid, before I had this album. and I always absolutely loved that song. Setting Me Up, Six Blade Knife, Southbound Again, but then on side 2 you've got Sultans of Swing. I mean, arguably still to this day Dire Straits' signature song. You've got In the Gallery, Wild West End and Lions. It's a really good debut, but as I said, I think this band would get better as they went along. But I still love this album quite a bit. Now the next album we're going to have a look at is having its 55th anniversary in the month of June. It was originally released on the, what does my writing say there? 14th of June 1968. And it's just absolutely well known for its sidelong epic title track, and that is Inagata de Vida by Iron Butterfly. This album's a lot of fun. The side 1 you have 5 relatively short tracks. You've got Most Anything You Want, Flowers and Beads, My Mirage, Termination and Are You Happy? But really, you know, you own this album so that you can own Inagata de Vida, the sidelong epic. An absolutely classic tune. I mean, it's, you know, sort of very much gone into pulp culture with shows like The Simpsons referring to it and things like that. This is the only Iron Butterfly album I own. I probably should try and source some of their other albums because I actually do really like this album. So, but it's a classic album, so it had to be mentioned that it was having its anniversary this month. Now, the next album is a real favourite of mine. It's having its 40th anniversary in the month of June. It was originally released on the 15th of June 1983, and it is Escapade by Tim Finn. And this is Tim Finn's solo debut album. Obviously, Tim Finn at this stage was best known as the lead singer, frontman of Split Enz, and he was still in Split Enz when he recorded this album. He would leave Split Enz not too long after this. He'd do one more album with them, which was Conflicting Emotions. And, you know, I mean, that title track, Conflicting Emotions, kind of said where Tim was at about whether he wanted to stay with Enz or wanted to go off into a solo career. But this solo album is probably still my favourite Tim Finn solo album. It's a wonderful pop album. It explores things that he couldn't really explore in Split Enz, or he felt like he couldn't explore in Split Enz. Things like soul, and even on the big hit song off this album was Fraction Too Much Friction, which has got a slightly reggae feel to it. It isn't sort of cod reggae, but it's kind of got a little bit of a reggae flavour to it. Made My Day, very soul influenced, almost gospel influenced even. I mean, you look at the film clip and Tim Finn's sort of there as a preacher at the pulpit sort of thing. Not For Nothing is a beautiful song in a minor key, gorgeous ballad. Grand Adventure is a really good song. Staring at the Embers was another single off this album. Really, really good pop song. Wait and See, Only Want to Know, again, has a bit of that sort of reggae flavour. Growing Pains is a beautiful song, and then Through the Years to finish off. Just an absolutely gorgeous album, and as I say, my favourite Tim Finn album. And I don't think it's even that close. I love a lot of what Tim Finn's done in his solo career, but this is, for me, far and away his best solo album. Now, the next album we're going to have a look at is also having its 40th anniversary in the month of June. It was originally released on the 17th of June 1983. It is my favourite album by this band, and that is Synchronicity by The Police. I've done a studio albums ranked on The Police. I'll leave a link for that in the description. This is, to me, their masterpiece. I mean, it's just wonderful, especially side one. It, to me, is where it's all at. You got Synchronicity 1, which is a wonderful, really energetic, sort of kinetic song to start the album. Then you've got the sort of haunting walking in your footsteps. And then you've got Oh My God, which is a really cool song with some saxophone on it. And then you've got then you've got Mother. Wonderful. I love Mother. I know a lot of people really hate that song because Andy Summers sings that song and he kind of caterwauls the song, but it suits the song so well. To me anyway. Then you've got Miss Grudenko, which is a wonderful song by Stuart Copeland, sung by Sting. Just a really great song. Only a short song, sort of 2 and a bit minutes. Then you've got the absolutely epic Synchronicity 2. Absolutely great. Side 2 is probably the more pop side of the album, whereas I think that side 1's got a lot of more experimental and strange things. You've got obviously the massive, massive hit Every Breath You Take. You've got King of Pain. You've got the gorgeous Wrapped Around Your Finger, and then the really beautiful Tea in the Sahara to end. And then the CD version would have Murder by Numbers as an extra track. But yeah, absolutely my favourite Police album. Great stuff. And then the last album we're going to look at today is also having its 55th anniversary in the month of June. It was originally released on the 28th of June 1968. It is the second album by this band. Very much a transitional album in a lot of ways, and that is A Saucer Full of Secrets by Pink Floyd. And when I say transitional, what I mean is they were obviously transitioning from the Syd Barrett era of the band into the sort of lineup that everybody would know with David Gilmour. I mean, you've even got on Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, all 5 of them playing on that song. But this is a wonderful album. You've got Let There Be More Light. You've got Remember a Day, which is a beautiful song, was a sort of leftover from 1967 sessions. Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, probably Roger Waters' first masterpiece. Corporal Clegg, kind of a song that sounds fun, but the lyrics quite dark. Then you get on side 2, you've got the title track, A Saucer Full of Secrets. Just a wonderful sort of music concrete, wonderful piece of work. You've got the lovely Seesaw by Rick Wright. I think that song's really underrated. And then you've got Jug Band Blues by Syd Barrett, which is beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time, because it really kind of shows his frame of mind and the fact that he knew that something wasn't quite right. But it kind of, you know, that he also feels like he's powerless to do anything about it. But I think this is a wonderful album. As I do most of the Pink Floyd catalogue, I've ranked that catalogue, so I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. But yeah, really great album. So as you can see, this was a wonderful month for music. Those are my anniversary albums. Please let me know in the comments which ones of these you like, which ones maybe you're not so keen on. Please let me know which ones I left out that you think I should have included. I always love those comments, because sometimes they're things that I had on my longer list, and sometimes they're things I never thought of. And I really kick myself for not thinking of them. But I love it when you mention them to me, because it makes me pull those albums out and go and listen to them. Please do like, share and subscribe. It really does help the channel out. If you're new to the channel, please have a look at some of my other videos. I have everything playlisted, so if you want to look at my other anniversary album shows, there's a playlist for that. If you want to look at my studio albums ranked shows, there's a playlist for that. If you want to look at my panels, just did a great panel last week, there's a playlist for that, and so on and so on. I also have a playlist for all the appearances that I've made on other people's channels. So shows like The Contrarians and Grant's Rock Warehouse and Rock Daydream Nation, etc., etc. There's a playlist for all of those, so please go and have a look at some of my appearances on some of my wonderful friends' channels, and please go and subscribe to them if you haven't already. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm at bicyclelegs on Instagram and Twitter. On Instagram, I'm mostly posting the albums I happen to be listening to at the time, as well as posting channel updates. On Twitter, I talk about anything and everything, but I am definitely trying to give that more of a music focus. I also have now a dedicated Facebook page for Bicyclelegs. Links to all of those are in the description, so please come and join there. Follow me, join in the conversation. I'd really love to have you there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.